I'll just go right on my cheeks. So it's already a little pink, just because of my like coloring. And so I'll just go right where it is, like right there, right there. And I also do a little on my nose just to give it that sun look and sort of make, again, my skin all the same color, and I'll blend it out all the way back. And the reason I do that is, again, to make it just look like it's my skin. It's not supposed to look like I have blush on, right? So I go all along my face. And then the final step for that is just to blend it all through with my sponge again, because it's still a little wet. It's like a little unblended there, so I kind of do that. So then my skin is kind of done for what I can do for it right now. I am breaking it out a bit, but I don't know, that's kind of all that I generally do for people's skin and my own skin, is just sort of like make it all kind of the same color, add the brightness, add the darkness, and then add the blush for like kind of a pop. Now, what I tend to do after that is eyes. So mascara is last for me. I also do put powder on people. I don't have powder here, I think. No, I don't. But I do put powder on other people and myself. It actually, a lot of powders have talc in it. So if you have acne prone skin, it can clog your pores. So I try to avoid it if I'm just like day to day. But if I'm going out, then I'll just dust like a translucent powder all over just to set it. You can also use a setting spray like the All Nighter by Urban Decay. Shout out Janelle. She gave it to me for my birthday. Yeah, and so you don't necessarily need it, but it sort of keeps you from going oily all day. So the next thing I generally do is I take the same little palette and I take the bronzer and I put it on a blending brush for eyes. So this is just sort of like a thicker brush. It's usually pretty easy to like manipulate. So unlike this side of it, it's really tightly packed. This one is sort of loose and it can sort of blend more easily. So what I'll do is I'll go into my crease, and this is another form of contouring, I guess. I'll go into the crease of my eyes and I'll just put it on. And the reason I do it with my bronzer rather than an eyeshadow is to make sure that my skin, again, is all sort of looking the same. So this is just another trick to make everything look natural. So as you can see, like the difference, basically it just gives my eye depth. Also my eye's really red, I think I got shampoo in it. But it gives like your eye depth and it sort of makes your eyes look a little bit bigger. But it still keeps sort of that natural look throughout. Okay. So as you can see, it's just blended nicely. You probably wouldn't even know that I'm wearing anything on my eyes right now. But I like to do that just to make it look natural. And then sometimes what I'll either do, if it's day to day, then I'll take the bronzer and I'll go under my lash line to make that look bigger as well. And just because I'm so blonde and I put all that concealer on under my eyes, I just like to sort of make it look a little bit bigger again by doing that under my eyes. And it also kind of brings together your whole eye look if it's already on top. So again, just like a tiny bit of bronzer on the brush, just going through. And again, it's just a trick to make your eyes look more open, more big, I guess. Anyway, I like it. It just sort of brings the whole look together. And you can be a bit messy with it. Like, I think people think that eyeliner and eyeshadow and stuff needs to be super tight. And your eyeliner needs to like line your eye like right on the waterline and stuff. But I actually like it if it's pulled down a little. It looks like more natural and like blended out. You obviously don't want like black eyeliner down here, but like just sort of pushing it down actually looks sort of nice and natural. So then the next step that I do is I'll take eyeshadow. So now that I have like my base on for my eyes, I'll take my eyeshadow palette, which is the Anastasia Soft Glam. Again, don't spend this much money on makeup, but whatever, I'm gonna use pretty like neutral colors so that you can get all these colors anywhere. Like you can get like an e.l.f. palette from Walmart and they're really, really good. And they generally just get like a browns palette and you can do whatever I'm doing now. So basically this is sort of, This is actually a little bit more. I don't generally put a ton of concealer on when I'm like just day to day. I just use my foundation and then some contour, some blush, and mascara, and that's like a day-to-day look. But when I do my eyes a bit more dramatically, that's when I'm like going out or whatever, right? So, or just like I'm having a fun day at work and I just want to do my eyeshadow fun. Anyway, so I usually go in with like a white or like a light base, and the contour is just in my crease, and I go with that white, and already where it looks a little white, right above my eyelashes, I'll put that like white color or like light color on just to create a base so that all the colors that I use after that actually show. They're not just blended out immediately because I have sort of like, think of it as like a primer for a wall that you're painting. And something also just to remember not to stress about is if it's exactly the same. Not every step needs to be like meticulously planned so that your eyes are looking the same for each one. I generally just put some on and then I blend it out to look the same, like to like the sort of translucency that I think is right. And if they're not exactly right, like it's fine, no one's gonna notice. And I also try to make it so that it's blended. So everything that I do on my eyes isn't really dramatic because I am so white and blonde and everything, that if I do anything too stark, like even really dark eyeliner, I tend to not do, especially if I'm just going to school, just because it looks a little too dramatic. So I like to keep things really blended. So the next color that I'm gonna use is Rustic. So it's that browny color right here. And it's just like a light brown, and I do it really light. So I tap it, and so you just get like a tiny bit of color. And the reason I do that is because you don't want to go in with your first color as being really dark. You want to build up darkness as you go, but I'm going to do a brown look with not that much, with not that many colors. So this is kind of my base, or like my sort of the color palette that I'm going to go for. So I'm going to put that on the corner of my eye first. So you can hardly see it really. It's very, very light because you don't want that to be super dramatic. And I'm gonna go in along that contour that I put in earlier. Add a little more. And you just move it really fast and lightly. So you don't want to be like jabbing your eye. You don't want to be like doing it super slowly, because then you're gonna get longer lines, which sort of ends up looking a bit like less properly blended, a little less natural. And the reason I'm putting it on the outer corner is because your eye ends up looking bigger and more like cat-like, as you can see. It just sort of like lifts it if you have on the outer corner of your eye. So I'm gonna do that to the other side. And just again, those like sort of quick little tiny circles even. Brush strokes. And the faster I go, generally, the better it looks. So if I leave my makeup for a long time to like settle and like not sort of blend it out properly, like the slower I go with it, the more set the makeup gets. So then it's harder to blend it out. And I'm sure if you've noticed I've done your makeup, I do it really quickly and like really like sometimes a little harsh. And the reason I do that is so that the makeup doesn't just like cake on and set, and then you're sort of left with this unblended, weird looking mask makeup. Now, one other thing that I do that's just different from the contour that I put on my eyes, so the reason I do the contour first and then this, is so that we sort of get that, again, sort of simultaneous color all around my face. But then also, I use this brown, and I'm going in my crease, but I'm also pulling it down just a little bit. So with the bronzer, I kind of did this. And with the actual color, this rustic color that I used, I'm kind of pulling it down onto my eyelid. So it has this light effect right in the center, but overall, you actually get the color throughout. Now, the next thing I like to do is either darken it with this, just because I feel like it's sort of nice just to have like a light bit of color, but sometimes when you're going out, it's nice to darken it. So what I'll do is I'm gonna take this like Cypress Umber color, and basically it's just a darker version of this, so they kind of match well. So I'll take a darker brown that looks good with my lighter brown, and so that I can blend them together and they don't look like two completely different colors. It's more just like a shading effect. And what I'll do is I'll go to the outer lash line and I'll blend with my finger. And so it's just a tiny bit of color. And I just sort of blend it out, but what it does is sort of darkens the look out. Instead, this is like a day look, this is like a night look. It's a very subtle difference, but this one's darker. And in person, I think you could probably see more. It sort of like lifts my eye even more. It's a bit more of a dramatic look. Just doing the same to the other side. Put it on my lash line. And again, it doesn't need to be perfect because you blend it out, and that's something that's important, is the blending part is gonna make your eyes look good. So even if you don't put it on perfectly the first time you do it, you sort of blend it together and it looks good. Okay, so I'm trying to catch the light in here. And then what I do next is either for my own face, or like New Year's, like going out or something like that, I'll pick a sparkly color. I usually pick like a dramatic sparkle just because I find them fun and it's different and it kind of like draws your attention to your eyes and it's sort of interesting. But for generally, like general day-to-day wear, I will use either Glistening, which is on top, or Fairy, which is on the bottom, and both of them are really subtle sparkle. As you can see, I use them a lot. They're like the most indented ones. And all that it does is it just adds like a little bit of brightness, and it sort of brings the eye together, I find, because right now they're kind of dark and they don't really look like, I don't know, fully done or fully blended or something to me. So what I tend to do is I'll take my finger and I will use one of them, and I'll either put them on a brush really lightly. So I think right now I'm actually gonna use a brush. I'll just clean it off a little bit, or else use another brush. I have another brush here, so I'll just use this. Just make sure it's clean because you don't want to be putting more darkness on like the middle of your eye, or else it sort of looks, that's just not natural looking. It's not what eyes look like. And then if I'm doing browns, I generally take a browner glitter. If I'm doing, like I use this one a lot, Dusty Rose, just because I find it a really pink color and it looks really nice with like this one or even this one. So it depends what my other colors are, which one I'll use, but generally if it's the browns one, I'll use this Glistening one, and it's a little bit deeper, it looks a bit more brownier. So I'll do that, and then I'll tap it off because you don't want a lot of it on, and then I'll just go over starting from the inside or like middle out, and I'll sort of put it on my whole eye, like just right here. And it just adds some reflectivity. It sort of just brings it all together. And I'll put it just in the center of my eye a little too, like right there. Sorry, I don't know what you call that, I forget right now. Yeah, sort of just brings it all together, blends it out nicely. And in person, I think it even looks better because the lighting sort of catches it differently no matter where you turn your eyes. So that sort of adds that sort of pop in your makeup, in my opinion. So now the last step that I have here, I sort of wait for the end because I want to see what my eyes look like. So right now they have this kind of like yellowish browny look. They're not super dramatic, they're just sort of like lightly done. What I like to do is I'll take that first light color that I use, so this Rustic, and do the same thing that I did with the bronzer, and I'll tap it off a lot because you don't want to be like putting it like crazy. And I'll go from the outside and I'll just lightly tap it on so that my eye has the same colors on the top and the bottom. Basically, you don't want to put like that really dark color underneath, I don't think, especially on blonde people. And basically what it does is like you have that darker color so you still get that pop, but it sort of ties in both edges. And then I usually just take the blending brush that's sort of wiped off a little bit and I just blend it out just to make sure that it's not like super obvious that I have that on the bottom of my eye. now, the final step before mascara for me is to take an eye pencil. You can take a really dark eyeshadow as well, it doesn't really matter, but I just find it's easier with